Why Della Maddalena will knock out Islam Makhachev.
And no! Current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev is going to move up to the welterweight division to face Della Maddalena.
They said that Islam Makhachev would get the title shot up at 170 if you won this belt tonight. What do you think about that?
I think it's a beautiful challenge. You know, he's pound for pound number one. I'm going to get him back for Vol.
Islam Makhachev versus Della Maddalena. That is some fight. It's great. It's awesome. But I tell you what, don't bet your house on Islam Makhachev getting the job done. If you're Islam Makhachev, you better up your game, buddy, because that is not a given for anybody. That version of Della Maddalena, I don't know if anybody beats him anytime soon.
With JDM becoming the welterweight champ after defeating Belal Muhammad this previous weekend, the rumor is that JDM's next matchup will be up against Islam Makhachev, potentially in Perth. And although Islam Makhachev is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter rightfully, I'm here to tell you that JDM will not only beat him, but he will knock him out. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. And also click that join button for exclusive perks. But anyways, let's get into it. Ever since joining the UFC back in 2022, Della Maddalena has been one of the more impressive prospects we have in the UFC. As in his first year with the company, he fought 3 times and got 3 first-round KOs. And although the level of competition wasn't necessarily the highest in his first year with the company, at the end of the day, Jack was showing off why the UFC signed him. He was obviously a tremendous boxer and he was doing what he needed to, dominate his opponents. But as the wins started to pile up, the level of competition also started to rise. As in 2023, Jack had 2 wins over Basel Hafez as well as Kevin Holland. Both impressive performances for different reasons. In his Basel Hafez fight, he had Basel on the ropes a couple of times in that fight, and if a couple things went differently, Jack could have found the finish. And in the Kevin Holland fight, Jack showed off his boxing pedigree, as he was able to land effectively on Holland while also not getting hit all that much. And of course, after putting those 2 wins together in 2023, the level of competition rose once again, as his next fight was up against Gilbert Burns, and in that fight JDM was able to find a very impressive knockout in the 3rd round. Now on the judges' scorecards it said that JDM was down 0-2 against Gilbert in that fight, so essentially JDM needed a finish at that point, but in my opinion I thought it was probably 1-1 with JDM winning that 3rd round up until that finish point. But regardless of what the scorecards were, it didn't really matter. As I said, JDM was able to find that finish, and all those victories he was able to put together led us to where we're at this previous weekend, where JDM was fighting for the title against Belal Muhammad. And in that fight, Jack looked amazing. He was able to stop a lot of takedowns, which was a huge question mark going into the Belal fight. He was able to land extremely effectively throughout the entirety of the fight, but especially late in that 5th round, as Jack almost got pretty close to a finish on Belal. And overall, I thought Jack looked extremely good. He showed a lot of the things that we've seen in a lot of his other fights, like his boxing skill, his ability to land very precise shots and very powerful shots on his opponents, while also essentially leveling up against Belal, as he was able to stop a lot of takedowns. Now yes, Belal didn't shoot for that many takedowns in this fight, but the times that he did look to wrestle, JDM was able to stop most of those takedowns. So a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, how has Della Maddalena been able to have so much success in the UFC thus far? Well, in my opinion it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first factor I want to touch upon is his overall boxing skill. Because when you watch JDM fight out there, it's very clear that he has a tremendous boxing background. What JDM does on the feet is just extremely effective. At range, he's able to do a really nice job at landing his jabs and left straights. He's able to do a nice job at throwing kicks to the legs and even kicks to the head at times. And essentially, JDM has the boxing skill and ability to win fights by outpointing his opponents and fighting at range. But mostly what JDM does extremely well out there is get on that inside. And he's able to do so very effectively on all of his opponents by utilizing that footwork. And once JDM does get on the inside, that's really where he goes to work, and that's really where he finds most of his finishes. On the inside, Jack does a great job at mixing things up, whether that's hooks, uppercuts, or crosses, while also at the same time going to the body very effectively. In a lot of his finishing sequences and a lot of the success that he's had in the UFC, on the inside, what he does really well in most of those clips is he goes to the body. And once you go to the body, of course, that opens up the head a little bit more. Of course, you're hurting your opponent's gas tank while going to the body, and it's just an extremely effective weapon for Jack Della Maddalena, and I do think he utilizes that body shot probably better or as good as anybody else in the UFC. But the next question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, why do I think Jack is going to knock out Islam Makhachev? Well, I think this for a couple different reasons, but the first factor I want to touch upon is Islam's striking. Because when you watch Islam out there, yes, everybody always says he does have underrated striking, which I would agree with. He did have some level of success on the feet versus Charles Oliveira, versus Dustin Poirier, and even against Alexander Volkanovski twice. But I think that success that he has on the feet is predicated off two different factors. The first factor is his size, because when you talk about those three guys that he said he had success against in Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, and Volkanovski, Islam was bigger than all three of those guys, and he was significantly bigger than Volkanovski. But the other factor that I think his striking is predicated off of is his wrestling. Because when you look at his two fights against Dustin Poirier and against Charles Oliveira, it seemed like both of them were striking a little bit differently, which makes sense, of course. When you look at the Dustin Poirier fight, he was only throwing one or two punches, and then he was very cautious of a potential takedown coming his way. In the Charles Oliveira fight, he was just striking in a very different way than we're used to, and of course that is due to the takedown threat that Islam has. Now, why am I even bringing this up? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think Jack is going to be able to neutralize both of those factors to a certain extent. In terms of the size, Jack is going to be bigger than Islam, so that's going to be a difference for him. But even in terms of the wrestling, Jack is coming off a really good performance versus Belal Muhammad. And in that performance, he was able to stop a lot of takedowns. And even in the couple times where he did get taken down, he was able to get back to his feet. So psychologically, after having a really good amount of success in terms of the wrestling defense against a great wrestler like Belal, I do think that could carry over into the Islam fight, and I do think Jack will have a good amount of success in stopping takedowns from Islam. And even in certain circumstances, when he does get taken down, I do believe he will be able to get back to his feet. So if those two factors do turn out to be correct, I think JDM will be a lot more confident and a lot more free on the feet to strike at his own pace. And if that does turn out to be the truth, I think there's going to be a huge striking advantage for Jack Della Maddalena, and I do think he'll be able to knock out Islam Makhachev in their fight. But the next reason for why I think JDM will knock out Islam Makhachev is due to Jack's boxing ability. Because when you talk about some of the guys that Islam has won up against in the past, yes, they were tremendous strikers like Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, and Alexander Volkanovski. But when you talk about JDM, I think he's a little bit different than all of those guys. What JDM does really well out there is box effectively at range or especially in close. And once he's able to get on the inside of Islam Makhachev, I think he's going to go to work. I think he's going to go to the body, he's going to put combinations together, he's going to be able to land very powerful and precise shots on Islam Makhachev, and I think over a full 5-round fight, he'll eventually be able to drop Islam and potentially even finish him from there. So I do think the overall precision and boxing skill of Jack Della Maddalena, combined with the power that he does have at a weight class above for Islam Makhachev, is going to be a huge factor for why I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to knock out Islam Makhachev. So my official prediction for this fight is I do think JDM is going to win by a 3rd or 4th round KO. But of course, I guess only time will tell, and we'll see what ends up happening when this fight gets announced, and of course when this fight ends up occurring. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Jack Della Maddalena will be able to knock out Islam Makhachev, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.